He says less about money now, more about land, less about people and more about country, less about death and more about genocide.
I think the piece that I was commissioned to write, I was almost given a blank canvas, like, what's Yemen to you? Like, talk about Yemen. And I know everybody's perception of Yemen is the war, but for me, I don't remember Yemen in war. I remember Yemen as being this absolutely mesmerising place. So I started to play with the idea of the beautiful, which comes up in the poem, and then experiences with my family members about the war. So I started to play with kind of My Yemen is beautiful, even in its limitations, in its limited water supply, and then it kind of goes on to a whole aspect of exploring these little stories of what is going on now, but it's still me still holding on to that beautiful. There's almost, within the writing, there's a battle between me not wanting to accept there's something really drastic happening. It is one of the most important poems I've written.
My mother finds it hard to tell stories of Yemen without du'as falling out her mouth, without her eyes looking up to God as if this was her cry for help. My mother breaks my heart every time she talks about Yemen.
I guess the piece that I ended up making was little tiny conversations that I have had with my family. And when you hear the piece, it can easily sound like it's not true, and I've made the little bits, but every single one is a story that I've had with an auntie or with a cousin or with a family member in Yemen, because that's their day-to-day.
It's still beautiful when my auntie tells us that doctors have raised their prices and now no one can actually afford to go. I realise how protected I am here.
Spoken word, poetry, art in general, it gives a traumatic experience humanity. So people can look at it and look beyond the fact that, you know, there's a massive war going on, but actually see the person. So when I'm reading it, that is part of my story and who I am. So almost it takes, if you've dehumanised, which has happened within the Yemen war, is like we've completely dehumanised the fact that there are humans that are living in Yemen that are dying on a daily basis. It brings that humanity back into it to go like, no, it's not just a statistic, it's not just in the newspapers, these are my family. And that's the power of art, I guess, is it puts that human in front of something.